Hello, good evening, everybody. Good evening, world. This is Lawrence coming at you from, as always, on the Prime Number Tuesdays with my good friend Vicky Soma for How Would You Slice That? Hello, Vicky.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great, doing great. For those of you who are not as familiar with the show, How Would You Slice That is a show for the 3D printing community where we emphasize new and upcoming 3D printer specialists, people who design, people who produce, people who work on hardware, and we have conversations about how 3D printing is affected or how 3D printing is part of their practice and what they're contributing to the community. And so we do have a guest this week. But before we get to that, I want to know, how was your 5 or 6 weeks since last we talked to each other, Vicky?
Pretty good. And I
Good.
think I have some banter this week, which is, in previous episodes, particularly like a year ago, I had aspirations of making a dress for my sister's Lauren's wedding. And when she broke her foot and the wedding got postponed, I pivoted and did like crochet garment for 3D Printopia with the little benchies and stuff like that. But all of a sudden I'm realizing, hey, that rescheduled wedding's coming back up. I need to pivot again. So I'm working on a new crocheted garment, and it's with something called granny squares. Hold on.
Oh, yes.
Which
I'm very familiar.
It's if you're not familiar with the granny squares, you'll recognize it when you see it, which I'm going to share screen real quick. Entire screen. This one. So here we go. So these are granny squares, which, you start in the middle, usually with a circle, and you switch colors and you kind of grow it. Putting the 3D printing element in it, I have little 3D printed centers instead of starting with yarn, and those are mirrors, right? So we're getting down to, I think I have, let's see here. It looks about like 11 days to finish, but I'm getting pretty close. I have, and these are not ready for social media kind of. This is just sharing for live stream people because it's not Instagram worthy or anything like that.
Okay.
But that's how it's coming together.
Wow.
And I'm like, I think I just was adding a 5th row of granny squares just this morning. So it's getting there. It's almost dress like. But one of the cool things, I have a video, and the mirrors are, again, not a great again, not for Instagram or anything like that. But when I'm moving, the mirrors are catching the light. So
that looks like fun.
Super excited about that.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Anyways, so we'll see how, hopefully everything goes well, and in 11 days I'll have stuff that I can share on social media of what the dress looks like.
All right. Well, good. Well, we're all looking forward to that. Congratulations on coming this far. Now, you knew how to crochet before you jumped into this, right?
Yes. Yeah. So crocheting and needlepoint were hobbies that I did before 3D printing. And when I got into 3D printing, one of the bummer things about the needlepoint is if you make a really great design and you want to make 100 of them, you're making 100 of them, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yay, with 3D printing, I just make the design once and then it does it. And that's great. And I love it. But I do realize over time there is a meditative quality of, there's a property of doing that repetitiveness and letting your mind, you're just counting stitches. It's very relaxing that, you miss when the printer's doing all the work.
No, good point. Good point. Yeah, well, I can definitely see that. The end satisfaction, the end result satisfaction is greater, but the process is greater with actual knitting and fiber work. Kind of traditional. Wow, good. I mean, combining the old and the new, which we'll mention again. The only thing that's happened to me this week is I've got 3 3D printers that we're hoping to install in the lab next couple weeks. We've got Bamboo H2D which are the 3D printers that have they're H2 printers that have the higher level security. So we're looking to put in WPA2 enterprise security 3D printers, and so the difference with that is that most of the 3D printers that are desktop nowadays that are under $5,000 do not have that WPA2 enterprise capability. They have the capability to go onto your home network, but if you wanted to take a 3D printer and put it onto your work network, it wouldn't be secure enough. Everybody's seen two-factor authentication and things like that associated with work. So like I said, in a couple of weeks, we should have 3D printers that stand the test of the security rigors, and we'll be upgrading and maybe even doing something crazy like making shoes or something. We'll see, because those units can print and PVA. It's a PVA that is flexible and soft, that you can make.
Do people do TPU shoes too?
TPU, yes, TPU. Yes, and people make shoes out of TPU. Yes, absolutely. So there's all kinds of interesting things on the horizon with that. But but as we're putting our things together and we're combining our skills with 3D printing and sewing, I've got a whole bunch of old printers, and now I got new ones coming in. And it's a little bit of a traffic jam, and I think that you're telling me that our guest this week can give me some insight into how to make everything optimized in that situation.
What an artful segue, Lawrence. That was very good. All right, everyone. So tonight's guest goes by many names. Some people call him Jeffrey. Some people call him Jeff. A lot of people know him as Rain Motorsports. He's been referred to as the Collector. And most recently, he goes by This Old 3D Printer. And that's a nod to an old PBS show that started in 1979 called This Old House. And just as that TV series focused on renovating and breathing life into old houses, bless you.
Thank you.
Our guest is doing the same thing, but with 3D printers. So he's rescuing old, forgotten, perhaps dusty printers and putting them back in commission with new firmware and new expert know-how. And through his work, he's gotten quite a collection. If you've been to 3D Printopia, you'll see that his booth doubles as a 3D printing museum. And from what I can tell, he is constantly scanning and scheming and on the lookout for new exhibits. Last fall, he went on a trip to Hawaii, and arguably there's lots of things to look at Hawaii, but somehow he managed to come home with at least 2 old 3D printers. So he came back with a MakerGear M2 Rev A.1 and a Thing-O-Matic from Hawaii. And these printers, they're not just sitting around. They're not displays. You can see them in action. He has a series of videos, and he's highlighting 365 days of printing on vintage hardware. So tonight, we are going to be joined by Jeff from This Old 3D Printer, a.k.a. Rain Motorsports. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeff.
Hey, Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Now, do you have any addendums or additions to the introduction?
I think you covered it well. We discussed it earlier that I was surprised that you had run into the 365-day series, which we'll discuss because I kind of failed around day 80. With all this travel and whatnot, I just couldn't do it. So we've turned it into episodes now. I actually have an episode I recorded a couple days ago that still needs to be posted. I don't want to say I'm burned out, but I've stopped being in a hurry. In Hawaii, 2 trips out there for work, both of them. First one I came back with the M2, and I showed up. The guy is like, "Do you know what you're buying?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know what I'm buying." Because people are worried about that. A lot of these printers that people sell me, I'm not sure which replicator this is. It's not that one. That's the first replicator that I got. The guy said it was very difficult to sell this. He had it listed for the one I think I bought that one for $50, but it had it listed for $100. The printer had history. It had started a company. And, you know, I show up and I describe to people what I do, and then they're relieved because the perfect person has shown up. And I will never claim to be an expert, but I seem to be really good at making these machines run, so I'll take it.
You're that
Wow, that's
old
great.
printer whisperer.
Yeah, it's a good-
And Chad's already pointed out you don't have to do 365 days in a row. You can
No, and I would
Sweep
love
it
to
up.
hit at least 365 videos to at least complete that out. But I've had 64 printers in the last, I think we're about 5 years now. That's another thing, is I haven't been doing this forever. I didn't start with old printers. So I started in 2001 with a MakerBot Replicator Plus that was such an experience that made owning an Ender seem like a dream. Yeah. But I always wanted an Ultimaker. I wanted an Ultimaker original. We have an original. We have 2 original pluses now. I always wanted an Ultimaker, and the thing was, I want to take an old printer and I want to hot rod it. And honestly, I have not really done that yet because I get printers. Most of these are in pretty good shape. Some of these need restoration, but I get such complete examples. I think it would be a shame to do anything to them. So we do modern firmware on a lot of them, which is a great experience. Modern firmware, good quality filaments. And I think the knowledge that we have today really changes the experience because we know how printers work now. We know why failures happen, and we can identify them quicker. And I just think just that knowledge alone changes the experience. I've printed things on these printers that people who worked at MakerBot, worked at Ultimaker at the time, say we've never got anything that good out of it. I don't know if I believe them, but the early days were rough.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they definitely were. And so MakerBot and Ultimaker, and I think you said MakerGear. I see a couple of other
Yeah,
ones.
he has some MakerGears. Yeah.
So there's the MakerGear M1 here. I mean, do you want to go on a little tour? We can
Ooh,
do that
yes.
here. So we have, let's see if I can aim here. We have 2 MakerBot Cupcakes. That was their first printer. Came out in 2009. Both of mine are 2010s. The Thing-O-Matic came out in 2011. 2012 was the Replicator. I don't have a Replicator 2 yet. Ultimaker, 2011 originally. The screen came out in 2012. This one's a 2013. I believe 2014, the Ultimaker Plus came out, which added the heated bed, which is a recommended upgrade, I think.
Yeah.
MakerGear, 2011 was their first printer.
It doesn't look anything like the MakerGear M2 that launched my love of 3D printing.
That still goes up and down and back and forth, which is the thing that surprises people. I talked to Rick, who founded MakerGear. He actually sent me a box of leftover parts for these. So they were like the engineering samples that they bought when they were designing this printer. Wow. And we're going to build another one out of those parts. But up here, I have the M2s that came after. So those came out 2012 and up. So we have a Rev A.1 that has the dual extruder upgrade. We have a B.3 or B.4. I can't quite identify it. It's hard to identify every subrevision. I think that was 2013. And then I have a 2019 Rev H, which was the last one before they went to the M3.
Wow, you got quite a few of them.
Yeah, that one actually came out of Glen Allen, Virginia. It was left in an office, and we went to clean the office out. I'd actually moved that office before, so I moved that very printer from one person's cube to another. And then when one of my coworkers came and brought it to me and said, "I have a gift for you," I knew the printer already.
That's awesome.
MakerBot, MakerGear, PrinterBot, a lot of American companies represented here. So I have a PrinterBot Plus. I have the Simple. We have the Simple Metal back there. Most of my Lulzbots are in the basement. There is a Taz Workhorse over here, I think, there's a.
Sorry, real quick. This is his dining room.
This is in my dining room, And I set up the studio lighting for you guys and everything.
That's beautiful.
Webcams work better when you have lighting, but Taz Workhorse Plus. I bought this in a printer deal. It was 10 printers for $100. So I effectively got a $3,000 Workhorse Plus for $10.
Wow.
You know, I have some modern printers in here too. So we have, you know, some more of my Maker bots. These are also double stacked. I told Vicky this earlier. So there's 2 cupcakes there, 2 Thing-O-Matics, 2 replicators. There's 2 more replicators. There's 2 Thing-O-Matics, and there might be, actually, I think there's 3 Thing-O-Matics down there. I'm losing count, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because there's another printer bot back there. There's a Solid Doodle. This is a DIY Prusa Mark 0 that were rebuilt.
Oh.
So we rebuilt it. It came to me in Mark 0 spec, 3mm filament. And this isn't my printer. The owner wanted it converted, wanted it upgraded because it was rusty, wanted it actually running. So he wanted to keep a 3mm tool head on it, but we've upgraded some things. It's got some Mark II parts, Mark III parts, bare X-axis on it. The reason it's still sitting there is I decided to reinvent the wheel and design a brand new 3mm extruder, and that's taking forever. You know, but I have modern printers here too, because I've got some weird comments on some of my videos, and people are like, you need to upgrade. Man, I've got a rat rig I paid $200 for. I've got a Voron 2.4 I paid $300 for. The most expensive printer in the house is actually my wife's Voron Legacy that I spent about $900 building. But there's plenty more. But there's only like 30, 35 printers behind me in my dining room, which somehow my wife puts up with.
And then how many other rooms have printers?
Yeah, the basement's got a few. Most of the Lulz bots are down there. So TAS 4, TAS 5, TAS 6. That have 4 more TAS 6 in parts now. One of them is actually going to the gentleman. By the way, the gentleman who wanted the Mark 0 rebuild is 81, probably 82 by now.
Oh, wow.
He met me at 3D Printopia. So 2022 was the first year that I went to 3D Printopia. I went there as an attendee, and took my wife and kid, I believe, or maybe just my wife, I'm not sure. 2023, I decided to volunteer, but I saw those booths like, man, I want to be involved in this, but right now I don't have any. So I think 3D-Matic Vince may be in the chat. He gave me table space 1 year with the Ultimaker. So I got to show the Ultimaker off. And then actually there was a guy that had a couple of Vorons on a table upstairs, and we brought my wife's Voron Legacy. So I kind of got to display a little bit, and I volunteered, but when I wasn't doing my regular volunteer stuff, I could not walk away from the Ultimaker because I love talking to people about that. 2024, I volunteered again, but was not intending to display, but we had a no-show. And so we had an empty table, and I'm like, okay, would you guys mind if I brought printers in? So we filled it with 4 printers. I had just like a week prior got my E3D big box. And and then E3D was there, and they were all, you know, happy to see and talk to me. They even tried to help me get it running because it wasn't running properly. And unfortunately, that printer is the one that makes me question whether or not I can work on 3D printers. They put me in touch with Greg, the guy who designed it. One of the problems with that printer is the wiki and the forum are gone, so all that community knowledge is lost, except for the few people out there that, you know, get in touch with me and remember it. So I spent 3 days discovering something that they obviously had already figured out a long time ago. Somebody brought me a TAS 4, and then I had my replicator and the Ultimaker there, and that was a great event for me. But I wanted to do something bigger, which we'll get to with the project. But the story there is an 80-year-old gentleman at the time approached me and said, I have a replicator and I'd like that refurbished. Is that something that you can do? And because I was needing to pass my information to Greg Holloway, the designer of the E3D Big Box, I had my phone number and email and address on a piece of paper in my pocket. I gave it to this gentleman. He owns the building that the Baltimore Node hackerspace is in.
Oh, wow.
And he's also an active member there. So we refurbished the replicator, and then he was like, he was still having problems loading the filament because it had the original extruder on the replicator was not that great. It actually has a Delrin pin instead of an idler like a wheel. Has a Delrin pin that pushes against the filament that wears out.
Wow.
So, and then you have to shim that pin further in. So people printed, you know, the Mark 8 arms that we know them today. People started printing the printed versions. I think Zach Friedman has a good video related to that on the replicator too as well. The actual thumbnail for his video is the printed extruder arm. But they had some G-Tech extruders on there, and they were hard to load because the filament path was bad. And then he got into asking me about firmware. He's like, can we do something about the firmware? And most people's answer at the time was no. There was a replicator revival project that had put Clipper on it, but most people thought you couldn't put Marlin on it. Somebody had actually made contributions to Marlin in 2019 to get the FlashForge Creator Pro running, which is a clone of the replicator. So you could put Marlin on a replicator. And I told him no at the time. I thought the answer was no, but I started digging into it, and we ended up putting Marlin on it, and I ended up pushing those configs to the Marlin project so that the rest of the world can know that, hey, you can put Marlin on these. And that's what got this whole ball rolling. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to display. Just coming every year and displaying old printers, it's just, I'm taking up space that I think is valuable, because if people show up every year and they show off the machines that they're working on, and there's some truly innovative stuff out there. So I don't want to just take up the space with old printers. And I was just thinking about this, man, like, all these old printers can probably run modern firmware. There's one here that so far can't. That is the Cupcake. And because the Cupcake runs, it runs a DC extruder motor. It does not run a stepper. And most firmwares don't deal with that anymore. You know, some of the old ones, 5D, T-Cup, stuff like that, they do. The other problem is I think that main board only has like 64 kilobytes of flash. The one that surprised us is the Thing-O-Matic. The Thing-O-Matic was their second printer, and it runs an Arduino hat that kind of resembles a more modern motherboard, but it also has show this or not, I'll dig it out now, but the Cupcake has a toolhead board on it, and the Thing-O-Matic continued with that board. They call it the extruder controller, and it's now moved underneath. It's no longer on the toolhead, but that extruder controller is capable of doing a number of functions. One of them is running the DC extruder motor, if you have a DC extruder motor, or it can run a stepper now. Well, actually, I think you run a fourth stepper driver, but that extruder controller only has 16 kilobytes of flash. So fitting Clipper into 16 kilobytes of flash, Marlin can't run on it because Marlin does not do multi-board. Clipper does, but 16 kilobytes of flash is nothing these days. And we found out the solution. One of the things I went to, I do a little programming here and there. It's something I learned about Vicky. She's a programmer. I'll tell you another story about that later, but I've done some programming in my time, but it turns out the GNU C++ compiler has undergone some changes in recent years. I think especially on 64-bit systems, where the binaries that it's putting out are just larger for no particular reason. I know with 64-bit address space, you have a little bit more like padding there, even when it's not being used. So we were able to fit into 32 kilobytes of flash, but not 16. And we knew that it shouldn't. Historically, this was not the case. Historically, you could put Clipper on this board, or on that chip anyways. It's the Atmel 168, or ATmega 168. So look into it. It turns out GCC 8.3 will put out a binary that fits on that board. So we had to go back in time software-wise and use an older compiler.
Wow.
So we're the latest version of Clipper, but compiling with an older compiler, and it fits. So now the Thing-O-Matic can run Clipper. I need to put a guide out. I've actually had a couple of people that poked me and said, hey, I really want to do this. It's like, all right, I need to write a guide. I actually killed one of the extruder controllers during testing, because I set the one of the things the other thing is 16 kilobytes again. There's a bootloader on that chip, and we don't have room to have that bootloader there. So you have to set the flags to where it doesn't reserve space for the bootloader. I set the flags wrong. It now is expecting to run at some random frequency that we don't know what it is, and it's no longer communicating over serial. So it is fixable. Atmel chips, you can use what's called a high voltage parallel programmer. I don't have one. You can also sit there, trial error, and try to get the frequency right. But good luck with that.
Yeah. No, I remember the days of dialing in and that the frequency that you're talking about, is that the baud rate, or is that something different?
Well, the frequency of the chip itself. So it's supposed to be running at like 8 megahertz or whatever.
Okay. Well, no.
But
There you go.
that may affect the serial baud rate as well, because I mean, I used to do overclocking, and back in the day we used to set the front side bus. We would up the front side bus speed because we couldn't change the multiplier on the CPU. But the problem is that also there was a multiplier for the RAM. So you push the bus speed up, it's not just making the processor faster, it's making the memory faster. And the first thing you run into is that memory doesn't really want to go faster. So your overclocking is limited by it. So I think there's a multiplier in there somewhere that determines what the serial speed is going to be, especially if the processor is running really slow. Maybe it's not even trying to set the serial at that speed, but the processor is running so slow, you're trying to talk to it too fast anyways.
Wow.
Just a guess. I'm not that much of a hardware or software guy.
But
I know that. I know people might think I am, but
hardware. So what is your background then?
Well, so not much formal education. I went to school for automotive. Everybody thought I was going to go to school for programming. I learned BASIC when I was 9. I learned Pascal when I was 12. I was working under the table at a data entry company that wrote their own software. And they had these programmers from India. One guy's name was Reddy. I know they shortened their names, but the guy was Reddy. So we had a program called ReadyScan. And he wrote it in Delphi, which is a Pascal IDE or an object Pascal IDE. And I borrowed a copy of Delphi 3. There's example programs in there. BASIC teaches you the fundamentals of programming. And Pascal is a fairly high level, easy to read language. So I just looked at the example programs and started picking up the syntax. I currently work for a moving company, which is what takes me all over the country. And yeah, so I applied as IT, and IT and moving is easy. You wouldn't even think about the fact that there's IT and moving, but somebody has to move the monitors, the docking stations, towers, even the servers, and I'm well overqualified for that. And then I became a furniture technician, and I do just about everything. I do 3D rendering, but my job has taken me a bunch of places where I've found 3D printers, whether for sale or sometimes just laying around.
Wow.
So what's involved with bringing printers home from Hawaii? I guess they don't.
Oh, I wish I had some pictures ready to go, but it's amazing what you can fit in a carry-on. So the MakerGear M2 frame, the frame itself will fit in a carry-on. So I put the frame over the bed inside of the frame, just disassembled the whole thing. Which is cool. If the printer needs to be refurbished, we're disassembling it anyways. But my replicator, I flat packed one of these replicators into a carry-on as well. I think the fun part is airport security. It's not so much taking the printer apart and get it. And if you've ever flown out of H&L on Oahu, they don't even like their CT scanner. They have almost all X-rays. I think they have one CT scanner. And I was talking with one of the agents, and they said, yeah, we don't like the CT scanner because it takes too long. I'm thinking, ma'am, with all the electronics that are packed in my bag, I think you'd prefer the CT scanner. So when the M2 went through, they of course flagged it, and I had, because of the glass bed and whatnot, I had packed my clothes around the glass bed. And so they pulled it, and I'm like, okay. And the guy was cool about it, but I kind of was a little reachy, like you shouldn't be. And I was like, dude, if you handle that bed in that way, the glass is gonna just fly out and break.
Yeah, so it's gonna cut you. Then I'm going to jail for your mistake.
He let me assist him. I had no problems with the replicator, which I had brought before. The Thing-O-Matic, I also flat packed. The thing that cursed me with one of the replicators is the gentleman gave me the original box. And I believe with Southwest, I don't know if this is a federal regulation. With Southwest, your maximum checked bag size has to be under a total dimension of 62 inches. And I measured the box, and it's all three dimensions added together, 61.5 inches. So I was able to, and I didn't want to risk.
I thought the story was going to go the other way.
I didn't want to risk. I didn't want to risk the printer, so I flat packed the printer into my carry-on. I put my clothes in the box. I taped it, and they're like, well, we need to see inside the box. I'm like, okay, it's closed. And they open it up, and they're like, it's closed. I'm like, yeah, it's closed.
Was it a clean or dirty clothes?
Yeah, I think they were clean, but I could be wrong. Yeah. But part of it's out of paranoia. I've shipped some of these MakerBots have come out of New York. I've had them shipped assembled. but I'm just paranoid that something's going to happen to it. If you've ever seen an airport handler throw baggage, so if I can fit it into my carry-on, I'm buying it and it's coming home with me.
Well, that they're going to get bigger and bigger eventually. That's a good trick, but that keeps you definitely in the early stages of 3D printing. When it was amazing to have a 6-inch bed. But one thing about all the early 3D printers, there's two things that really kind of come to mind. One is I have some background in HVAC, right? And so in the early stages of 3D printing, you could see if somebody had a print that lasted, let's say, 8 hours, you could see the temperature changes in the actual print, and the color of the filament as it laid down. But one thing that I also think happens is that the wood expands and contracts depending upon the time of year. Have you experienced that? Have you seen?
So that's the thing. People, there's a few comments that come up with the wood printers. So I think there's three main ones you can focus on. Humidity, because they warp and they change. It's a fire hazard. I hate that word sometimes. There are some things that I don't consider a fire hazard. For it to be a fire hazard, there would already have to be a fire, which 3D printers can start fires.
Yes.
But if you have a fire, you've already got a problem. The third one is termites, which the Thing-O-Matic that came from Maui, because the one Thing-O-Matic, I think it's still down there. It has not been put back together. It was first, just to be sure, it was baked in an oven, which warped the hell out of it.
Oh, I believe it.
We'll get back to.
Were there verified termites in it?
It had termite damage.
Oh wow.
Which is common in Hawaii. So as far as we knew, it was old damage, but I took it apart and I baked all the wood in an oven to make sure, because the eggs can live for years. They can be dormant.
Is that something that you already knew, or did you have to Google, like, what do I do about termites?
Well, like the eggs thing, that's not necessarily something I knew, but sheer paranoia when it comes to the insect stuff. Heat is an answer. It's always an answer. They like a certain amount of heat, but everything dies above, like 120 degrees or so, except maybe cockroaches. So I cooked it, it warped, but that's the joke, is that all this wood, termites. So, the wood warped because of moisture. There was a moisture change. So one of the things I did to restore that is you actually wet, I can't remember which side it is, and this is something I had to look up. You wet one side of the panel and it will start moving the other direction.
No kidding.
And then it will reach an equilibrium. The other thing I did is, after wetting it, then I assembled it, because these boxes are most of these boxes are self-squaring designs. And they pull themselves together. So wet it, reassemble it, and got it pretty close to where it needed to be.
Oh, good.
I have not experienced the amount of warping that makes the printer unusable. The Ultimaker, there's some printer. I'll give you my worst example of a printer. Something that definitely would need to be re-leveled every time you look at it.
Every time you look at it.
This is the PrinterBot Simple. Most of this gantry, if I can hold it still enough to show how much it moves.
We already saw like quite a bit of,
But it's bearings with structural zip ties. So it moves. And
can't mess with that.
I don't know if you can even see it, but this bed is like slanted in the way it's mounted.
I see it. Yeah.
So this is horrible, but this is not a self-squaring box. So it makes a huge difference in that. The Simple Metal is definitely a much better printer. But I had the one Ultimaker at 3D Printopia 2023, or sorry, I guess that was still East Coast Rep Festival. I haven't been mixing that up, but I had an East Coast Rep Festival, and then I took it home. I think I may have used it once. I think it had not been used for like 8 months. I took it to 3D Printopia East Coast Rep Festival 2024, put it on a table, fired it up. I have running clippers, so I checked the bed mesh. The bed mesh was within 0.03 of where it was last time.
Really?
Yeah. So between two different venues, which may have different humidity, it wasn't that bad. So for me, I would say my experience is that it's not necessarily that bad. Now my humidity changes might not be that drastic. So it depends on what climate you live in. People argue over drying filament, which is a standard practice in every industry that uses thermoplastics. I don't know why we're ever arguing over that. I understand that not everybody can have a drying setup, and we can get away with not drying our filaments a lot. But it is a standard practice with thermoplastics, so we argue about it.
Well, I know that I was operating out of the not drying camp out of pretty much pure ignorance. Like I didn't know, you buy, where's this filament? I gotta go. There's like 4 places on the planet that I can buy filament from, and none of them mention it. And so, I started my practice without drying. Of course, things are different now, but yes, yeah. The reason I wasn't doing it is because the community wasn't talking about it as much. It was only when you really start getting specific.
We get away without doing it a lot, but the thing is a lot of people's troubles. Their warping, their bed adhesion, stuff like that. Surface quality is a big thing. That's the reason why other industries preemptively dry things, is because they're counting on a consistent surface finish. They're counting on it to be stronger. We're 3D printing a lot of stuff that we're not that worried about. This project, this is from the 365 days series. This was a project.
What day? Or probably multiple days.
Multiple days. This was printed on the Ultimaker Original Plus. This is Lucky 13's, I forget what it's called, Dummy 13. I think the gentleman's name is Gabe.
Yep, you've got it.
I can't remember his last name, but we printed this model, and I think I started printing with the blue, and I loaded the blue into the printer, and the printer did not want to extrude. And I'm like, what is going on? And then we stopped trying to extrude. All of a sudden, a bunch of material comes out of the nozzle. This thing was hissing and popping, and it just did not want to print at all. Brand new roll of PET G, put it in the dryer for 4 hours. I know people, especially with a roll that wet, they run it for longer. I put it in the dryer for 4 hours and then ran the whole roll off. Wow. So, that to me, that's another testament to drying. Yeah. So this was over multiple days. I tried to come up with different ways I guess we should probably talk about that project now, but I tried to come up with ways to fill multiple days of content. So at the beginning of the year, like it was like New Year's, and I was thinking, I see people do these post, everyday challenges. And I was thinking, okay, I'll post a picture of a finished print on one of these old printers every day. And the first day was a Thing-O-Matic. I think we had just put Clipper on it. And I was trying to do an articulated turtle, which I wish I knew where. I didn't get any prints out for this. Here's, this was a Cali lantern, which came out quite well. You worry about how square these old printers are. One of these measurements, only one of these measurements, it was one of the here-to-heres, was out by enough to be concerning. Everything else was as good as any other printer I've ever done a Cali lantern on.
So that's part of you would do it, and then you're doing calibration measurements too, just like we would do at We the Builders. When We the Builders sent parts for group project, we're measuring it and looking for the variances in the measurements.
So the print failed, and I posted pictures on a couple of things. I said, okay, I'm gonna have to let the day one result stand, because I want to do this. I want to post every day. We're posting, so we're gonna post whether there's not failures. I put the video. I put like an 18-second clip on TikTok, and it got a few thousand views. And I'm like, okay, I think video is the answer. I don't think pictures of finished prints is the answer. Let's do video. So from day 2 on, we were doing videos, and that got to be a little bit much. But I knew with the traveling, one of the things I wanted to do was not every video was going to be shot that day. Let's get like a week ahead. Let's get like a month ahead at some point, which never happened. And then the other thing, I was traveling, so I ended up one of the weeks, I drove to North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, back to South Carolina. I took one of the Thing-O-Matic, so there are several videos of me printing from a hotel. And I did that.
Really?
I did that to kind of fill in some of the content that was going to be during travel. And I was just in Hawaii, and we were already past the daily episodes, but I think my most recent video is the MakerGear M2 that I bought on Oahu. This is the screen that was supposed to come with it. The gentleman messaged me. He said, "Hey, I found the screen for that." And I almost didn't recognize it. It's Vicky or Viki, I'm not sure, Viki. This is based on an Adafruit product. Apparently, I've been told, because I have some people that know more than I do about some of these printers, I'm told that this was the premium option back in the day. This was a really expensive screen.
It really does look upgraded.
It has, it has the directional pad. It also has the click wheel. So it's got click, it's got scroll, and then it's got directional pad on it, which seems a little bit. I'm told that configuring the firmware for this might be fun, but I'm told that this was quite the premium option. So he messaged me and said, "Hey, I found the screen for that. What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to be on Oahu in 3 weeks, so why don't I just come by and pick it up?" So I did a video from Tech Cheaper says more technology in the screen than the entire printer. Sometimes I don't want to talk bad about anybody. Sometimes I wonder with the M2s, even the M3s are still running Marlin 1, from what I understand. 1.1.9 is the latest firmware for any of those printers. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of tech in that screen.
Quick question.
I did find your TikTok, so I'm just going to share it while we talk, so you can see the extensive amount of video. You said you only did like 80 some odd days, but that's a lot of days.
Yeah, I think it was day 79. We ended up skipping a day after that, and then I did I think day 80, or maybe that was episode 80. I can't remember, but basically into the 80s, I said, "Hey, we're gonna do episodes instead, and that way we can pace them however we need to pace them." I need to get back to it. I've got the MakerGear M2 from Oahu. The X driver is not working, so we need to swap the board, and I have extra boards at this point. If you go all the way back down there, I saw on the bottom right, the Thing-O-Matic there. See what that. Oh, that may have been, just all the way to the right there. Just you see that one right there. Click on that one. So that is the Thing-O-Matic running at Voron 0 speeds with Clipper, printing a flexible print. So this is a printer from 2011.
Wow.
And I think this is the print that failed. We have successfully printed this print because that was day one. So day one started out with this ambitious print.
The bed is interesting.
Yes, it is.
It's like 2 layers.
That is what gets people about it. So what gets people about the MakerGear is that the bed goes up and down and back and forth. But if you look at the Thing-O-Matic, it has this tiny little Mark 7 extruder. But this Kinematic started with the Cupcake, which had a large extruder. The extruder was larger than the bed. And the first thing I tell people is, because people are like, "That's so weird." And I'm like, "Have you ever seen a Bridgeport mill? Bridgeport mill has this huge implement, and you don't want to sling that around." And I said, I think the rule is whichever is smaller is what should move. So if the bed is smaller than the extruder, then the bed should move in all directions. And I think that's where they came up with this. It had a history in CNC. That's why when I asked Rick, I said, "Hey, what is your inspiration for the MakerGear Mosaic?" Because most of these printers, they have some sort of analog to a CNC machine. And he said the Tier Time Up, which is sold to schools and whatnot. The original Up, which came out, I think, in 2010, that was they had the bed go up and down and back and forth. And it's been done a few times, but people don't see it. People get surprised by plywood printers. People get surprised by these strange kinematics that 2010 to 2015 have been tried several times, and I know about them because my neurodivergent hyperfocus happens to be 3D printers at this point in my life.
And I think you have some other old hardware that's not 3D printers. I think you had a drill from 1960 or something like that.
So I had a drill. So I built a printer for my son recently. Switch this. So this is just a Prusa Bear. It's the Prusa Bear mod. These extrusions are strange because they're closed extrusions on one side. That's what the drill press is for. you can still, these extrusions still have, I don't think any of them are open right now, but these extrusions still have a slot for the nuts behind this. So what I did is I had somebody gave me a 1960s drill press kit, the kind where you strap your own drill into. So, and I used that first time I ever used that was this. So for the feet, and for these brackets are off a Taz 6. These extrusions are off of a Two Trees Sapphire Plus. This Bondtech extruder with a sliced mosquito I got in a printer deal. I bought a Voron Trident for $350, and it had probably $300 worth of extra parts. This is just built out of all the spare parts we had laying around, but that drill press kind of came in handy for trying to drill straight holes into extrusions that didn't have, slots for nuts.
Wow.
And just making, use of what I have, say, what was it, reuse, recycle, reduce, or something like that. And do that with 3D printers. But also I have a couple of, I used to be into old printers. I sold old computers. So I sold all of my vintage computers when I got into 3D printing because I needed the room.
Did you sell them to Dave Randolph?
No. I sold them to a few different people, but one gentleman came up and picked a lot of them. But I've kind of gotten back into it. The Node Hackerspace, they had the TI-99 4A. It was sitting in what's called Purgatory. Purgatory stuff sits there for a while, and then they purge it. And I've said, is this here on purpose? And they're like, yeah, you can have it. And then the next time I went in, there's another one sitting there with a Post-it note that says, "For Jeff?" ? So, and then this wasn't on purpose, but we did a job where a business had a wall of motherboards, graphics cards, and stuff going all the way back to the IBM XT. And originally, I took just what I wanted. Like they had the AMD K2. It's like 450 or something like that. Back in the day, the K2, the K3, 450, 500 megahertz CPUs were, the thing that kids wanted. None of us could afford them. So they had 4 of them on the wall, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take them home, get them working. But the thing is they were leaving the wall as kind of an insult to the landlord. So they told me, take what you want, but we're not clearing that wall off. We're leaving it there. And then I got a call on the airplane flight back, and they said, hey, I guess they changed their mind. They said, hey, we're packing up that wall for you. So they packed all those motherboards. We have, I say every IBM XT all the way up to like K62. So there's dual socket 8 Pentium 2 overdrives in there, all kinds of stuff for me to nerd out on forever.
Wow.
Even worth money if they work. But they packed them up, and the next time we were in Florida, they gave them to me. So I now have 4 boxes of computer parts that I have no time, no space to deal with.
You've made an impact with people all over where they'll remember to hold things for you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I started the 365 days as a personal challenge, and it wasn't necessarily on purpose. People kind of got offended by me using the word vintage. Let's get your takes on this, because people think of vintage, they think of the collector's argument of it's got to be 20 or 25 years or older. But if you look up vintage, depending on the dictionary, it is synonymous with old, outmoded, or obsolete, which I think fits a lot of these printers.
Yes, absolutely. And I think now there's a lot of reasons why there's obsolescence. I think one is the 3 millimeter filament.
I wish I had some of that out.
The 3 millimeter filament thing that was going on with Ultimaker and with Taz, right? So what did you do to go from 3 millimeter to 1.75? Obviously, you have to do it like kind of across the board. What did you wind up doing?
What do you mean? This is 3 millimeters, or this is actually 2.85. I don't want to show the label on this. So these are factory rejects from a manufacturer. I could probably say who it is. It's Polar Filament.
I remember Polar. Yeah,
Polar white labels for different companies. Probably shouldn't show the label, but they white label for different companies, and some of these spools are like 0.06. So that's a reject. You know, some manufacturers only require a 0.05 tolerance.
Mhm.
I think Polar is somewhere in the 0.02, 0.03 range. I'm not sure. So
Mhm.
they have a spool come out 0.06. That's not going to the customer. They're not selling that.
Right.
TechJeeper, they occasionally do 2.85, especially if you, just like Polymaker has discontinued 2.85. So one of your questions kind of leads into what am I going to do in the future?
Well,
Um,
yeah.
Polymaker will make 2.85. Polymaker, Polar, probably any of the manufacturers, they will make any size filament you want. You want you're printing with Stratasys. You need some 1.78. They'll make 1.78. I think Mark
Really?
IV's is 1.73.
Wow.
So if you are willing to order a certain minimum amount, and I know Polar, their minimum amount's lower than Polymaker, but Polymaker, if you're willing to basically buy a pallet of spools, they will make you 2.85. And if you're a
Wow.
store, if for me, that's an insane amount of filament. So I went to, yeah, here you go. I went to basically every micro center in the country and bought all of their 2.85.
Stop it.
So,
You did that a while ago too. You did that a
yeah.
while
So
ago.
they were
You can't find
they're
it.
clearing it out for $4.99 a roll. I mean, come on, man. You know.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. So the answer is no. You're not changing the
the
extruders
fun
around.
the fun thing is the Mark 6, and I think I could even do it on a Mark 5, but the Mark 6 officially extruder on the Thing-O-Matic, there is a PTFE liner.
Yeah.
The hot end is crazy. There's a 6.5 millimeter thick PTFE liner in there.
Wow.
You can change the PTFE liner to 1.75 and then just tighten down. They have a thumb screw that pushes a piece of Delrin against it. Once again, they're using Delrin instead of an idler. But you can push that in further, and then you're at 1.75 on a printer
Wow.
from 2011. So
That's
there
pretty
are
wild.
a couple printers out there that will run 1.75 no problem with one official change. MakerBot actually sold the kit with the PTFE tube in it.
Wow. Now, one other thing that comes to mind, you mentioned it several times, and the first time I saw Clipper, I was like, give that to me. I am ready for a better operating, faster. Everything seems smoother. The parts seem better. The list goes on and on. But the Clipper user interface is the reason why I'm not using Clipper right now in a lot of instances.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. So the user interface is actually kind of a choice. When Clipper first came out, people used Octoprint because
Yeah.
so there was main sail didn't exist, fluid didn't exist. I don't know the full history of it, but Octoprint was the main choice to run Clipper, and you can still use it as far as I know.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Yeah, so I kind of like it. It's people talk about better. I don't think there's an answer to better. Marlin is great. I've done a lot of work with
I'm a
Marlin.
big fan of Marlin. Yeah.
I'm probably the only one compiling Marlin for about half these printers. There are some other people out there. I'm not the only one doing this. I'm not the only one this crazy. Although my 64 printer count may go against me there.
Mhm.
But I'm running into issues with the current development version of Marlin, which is 2.1.3. I've run into issues that really only happen on these old printers. I think the Ultimaker was one of them. There is an amplifier, a thermocouple amplifier. You talked about the temperature variation showing up in the prints. From what I understand, that is very common with thermocouples. Thermistors, you have a little less temperature variation, but it's enough of a swing. Between using Bang Bang instead of PID and the thermocouple, you would really see the temperature swing. But I think it's the 8595 thermocouple amplifier. The 8595 and its counterpart, they have a specific voltage they're expected to run at. So if you're running a 3.3 volt system, you use this one amplifier. You run in a 5 volt system, you use that amplifier. And Marlin originally hard coded, so 2.1.2 and back, Marlin hard coded the voltage in the math. And then somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm trying to run an 8595 on 3.3 volts. And they're like, that's not supported, blah, blah, blah. they changed the way the math worked, and basically allowed they gave all the boards their reference voltage and used the board reference voltage as the multiplier. And that worked. That actually works, even though it shouldn't. The problem is programming problem. They and it's only happened on 8-bit boards, not 32-bit boards. I'm not sure what it is, but they were casting a data type wrong. So they had a float and an integer, and it was getting cast wrong. And then instead of reading 300 degree or 250 degrees or whatever it is, it was coming out like 1.5 at certain temperatures.
You're reading what's coming off of them.
So the only time you're going to run into that is if you're running an Ultimaker original or something. So I've been able to submit a lot of fixes, and some of I don't do C or Objective C or whatever it is that they run in. I started to learn it a little bit, but with the help of their community as well. So I present all the data that I have, and they help me find the cause if I can't find it myself. But
how do you balance? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. What's up?
Yeah, like it's just like you're doing all of this research and the experimentation. You're documenting, and you're also making the videos. Like, how do you balance it all?
Well, if anybody's been to the website, they'll notice that I haven't posted anything since before last 3D Printopia. So I'm, as much as I'm struggling to balance, and kind of why the personal challenge kind of has dropped the episodes, is I'm not.
That's a good answer. That's a very real answer.
The goal with the personal challenge, which I think did rob the main project a little bit, the goal with the personal challenge is to spend more time with these printers, because I did not own any of these from new. I have not experienced them as a daily user did. The frustration, the breakdowns. So if I do this personal challenge, I'm spending way more time with these printers. I think I get more of the experience. I find more of the problems. That was kind of the goal, but it's put me even further behind on publishing some of these firmware articles that I'm supposed to. But that's the thing. And some of the articles, I'm going to write articles about this. Marlin's not necessarily worse than Clipper. On an 8-bit board, Clipper is definitely the way to go. Especially you want modern features, you want speed. You're going to get that on an 8-bit board through Clipper, and that is where that is where Clipper excelled.
Yes, but I could see that being the case.
If you want an inexpensive single board setup, Marlin is going to be the option. If you're already running, because one of the arguments is, you have to buy a Raspberry Pi. If you're already running Octoprint, then half of your excuses to not run Clipper or go out the window. You've already got the host environment. You're already okay with printing over a USB connection with another host. And then there's another option that we don't really talk about with my project, and that's RepRap firmware. And that's another single board solution, but it's more like Clipper in some ways. But my argument is that the reason I don't cover it is because I don't have any printers that really can, except for some of my modern stuff back here. But none of these older printers ran RepRap firmware or can run RepRap firmware, so that's not much of a thing to talk about.
Is that the environment that has Duet?
Yes. So they based it on the Arduino Do, which is I think a 32-bit processor. I don't know that much about it. I have several of them. I run them in like CNC routers and stuff.
Yeah.
But I especially with like the Duet 2, which I think has like 2 amp drivers or 2.5 amp drivers, I don't look at that board as a 3D printer board. The Duet 3 Mini, which has the TMC 2209s in it, that's a 3D printer board to me. Well, I look at that.
What do you think the Duet 2 is then? If it's not, it's what do you classify it as?
I look at it as a hobbyist CNC board, but all the actual CNC people disagree with me. But if you've ever used it with the screen that's meant for it, Panel Do has got an old, late 90s CNC interface to it. And I just don't like that. Apparently they're developing a new screen, and it's going to be better. But it's just, I don't know. I enjoy Clipper. I don't enjoy writing my config entirely in G code.
Right. And then but one other thing I wanted to ask you about before, because we have elapsed our time. There are certain hardware things that are no longer available because other things have come into the market and made them, I'm gonna use the term, reasonably obsolete. So I used to be a very big fan of Delta printers, right? But of course, if you have a Delta printer, you either got to tune the hell out of it to get yourself through that Bowden.
I think he's grabbing something.
Be careful. Oh. Okay.
There's a little Delta printer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the monoprice mini Delta.
Yeah.
So
those are awesome. Yeah, but I was I swam in the CNC water.
okay.
And then I also started making them based off of like the laser cut parts, and then I make them taller and all that stuff like that. But anyhow, remote drive extruders.
Okay.
That I had one that you have the motor up top and the drive down the bottom.
Like a cable
And
driven
like-
or
Is that different than Bowden?
Like-
What is that?
pinion driven.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by pinion driven, but there's the motor will turn a large, like a stiff metal core. That metal core would go to the extruder, and then that would actually drive like a wheel that would then turn and extrude your filament down. That's the best way I know how to describe it.
I've seen different designs for it. So you can do a cable, which I think has way too much play in it. I've seen ones where they have it's a rigid shaft, but I think it can slide into itself or something like that.
This rigid shaft is awesome to look at. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't pay too much attention to deltas, but that's something that I've seen. I think the middle ground that people went with, I have an Anycubic Predator. It's like a 3.5 foot tall delta.
Yes, I remember that one.
Massive.
Yeah.
It has what the flying extruder. So what they did is they
let's see, they put the extruder on the effector.
Yeah. So not on the effector, but above the effector. So they put they sprung it. They put 3 springs on these arms here, and there's a short Bowden tube. So it gives you that short Bowden tube, so that the weight isn't necessarily directly. I mean, physics are definitely not my strong suit. But the weight's kind of taken a little bit off it. Some of the shock is taken off of it, and it's sprung, and it'll bounce around a little bit. And I'm sure there's some downsides to that, but they try to alleviate the long Bowden length of a Bowden extruder, while trying to not be what do you call it, a remote drive extruder.
Right. Yeah. Well, but I guess what I'm really asking though is that, like, that's an example from Deltas, but like, have you seen hardware features go extinct because there's been something that kind of came along after that?
I think the main thing would be example is the Cupcake, and even the Thing-O-Matic in the versions that it had it is that DC motor extruder. Of course, we could say that, and then we're going to be kind of wrong. So it had a DC motor. I think some of the newer stuff, even Bamboo, they're using a DC motor with an encoder.
Right.
So that's technically kind of come back in a way. But the way the Cupcake prints is you set a I know we're running out of time, but I told Vicky, I said we could get into slicer stuff here. So Skyneforge is one of the old slicers that drive people nuts. So in Skyneforge, you set, I can't remember if I think you either set a width or a height. You don't get to set both. You set one, and you set a multiplier, and then you set a motor PWM. You decide how fast PWM speed, not particular, RPM or anything like that. You set a particular PWM value for the speed of the DC extruder based on how fast you're printing. You have one print speed, and you have to guess how fast you want the extruder motor to turn. So, I end up with
it's a screenshot from a wiki
with the G code preview and all that. Yeah. So, I end up setting like, I want to say you end up setting that like a nozzle width like 0.45, and then you end up setting a layer height multiplier like 1.5 or 1.9 or whatever it was. And then I guess that I read somebody had settings. They had set their PWM speed at 215, and I used that speed, and it worked out. And then in one video we decided how fast can we make this printer go? So we got up to 50 millimeters a second with the printer, with the extruder at full tilt. But there's no retraction. There's the reversal is a feature in Skyforce. There is no retraction. You're printing at one speed, you're extruding at one speed. The extruder can turn on and off, and there's this huge delay of an extruding fill. But I feel like, except for the fact that we now have what's the kind of a servo, the DC motor extruder is the main thing that comes to mind. You look at any of these printers and you're expecting certain things. I think one of the things that makes it easier for me to deal with some of these printers is we're expecting the 3D printer to have a certain technology dealing with a certain part of the 3D printing problem. And I can look at the printer and say, okay, this is how they did it. It's weird. I may not have seen that before, but it's familiar enough. Just off the top of my head, I don't know I can think of anything else. I mean, we're no longer wrapping we're no longer wrapping a threaded tube in nichrome wire as a heater, but heaters are heaters. I don't think we've actually obsoleted heaters yet.
No, I mean, the heater is a heater, but I remember having to get special resistors, big, huge green resistors that looked almost like horse pills.
Oh man!
And that was on my.
And this is his dining room.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Okay, so
everybody should have one like this.
So let's show the cupcake off real quick.
Oh my
so
god!
You have the main board, which is based on the Arduino Decimilia or whatever it is. You have these are each extruder. These are each stepper drivers. So there's a chip in the middle of the board. That's the actual stepper driver. Yeah. But then we have all the supporting hardware. Woo. The extruder controller, which on the previous version was actually mounted to the tool head. So this is extruder controller. This is a relay board. Now, we don't use mechanical. It's something else that's obsolete. We don't use mechanical relays because if they fail closed, that's gonna be a bad day. But this extruder controller cannot handle the resistors that I'm getting ready to show you. So they put a relay on it. And this relay, there's two relays on here. The other one was for heated bed upgrades. Let's see if we can undress this. And let me grab my camera. I'm gonna get this in here. But there.
Oh wow! Look at that. Oh yes.
There's a big green. There's a big green resistor in here.
Yeah. Both sides.
Both sides.
Oh man.
Yeah. If one of those fails, you get really, really, really slow heating. But these are a couple of like 5 ohm resistors or something. Yeah. The other one that I don't have it on hand. But the Lulzbot used to use a hot end called the Buddhist nozzle. Buddhist nozzle has 2 pieces of wood in it.
Yes, I got one at my house. Yes, absolutely.
There's 2 pieces of wood in it, and there's a really big resistor in there.
Yeah.
And when you're compiling Marlin for it, one of the things you have to do is you have to duty cycle the heater. I think their setting is like the PWM is like 75 or something like that. And that's not 75%. That's like 75 out of 255. If you do not duty cycle the resistor, it will heat up and explode.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, I'm glad I never put that one in.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a failure. I don't think there's that much danger to it. But that's something when you're dealing with some of these older printers, you need to do a little bit of research sometimes.
Yeah.
Because when I got my first cupcake, 2 things happened catastrophic. One, these things have 10 to 15-year-old power supplies in them. A good piece of advice if you're acquiring an old printer is to test the voltage outputs on the power supply. I turned the power supply on. I turned the motherboard on. Everything lit up. Cool. I clicked the power supply off. About 5 minutes later, snap, crackle, pop, the capacitors in the power supply blew.
Wow.
The other thing that I did, because I didn't know anything, you'll notice one of the things is that the motherboard has an RJ45 port with an Ethernet cable. That is delivering 12-volt power to, like, it's an RS485 communication link, which is common in CNC machines, but I believe it's common in CNC machines. But that delivers communications and the 12-volt power for the heater to the extruder controller. I did not know what I was doing. These connect the stepper drivers, but the motors weren't moving when I commanded them to move. So I'm not knowing anything about this. I'm thinking, okay, they have these little RJ45 jacks. These RJ45 jacks. I plugged an Ethernet cable from here to here and blew up one of the stepper drivers.
Yeah.
So research is important with some of these
Yeah.
machines. I ended up, the smallest thing I think I've soldered in quite some time. I ended up soldering a driver chip to them because you can still get these chips. So I was able to repair it. In the meantime, I breadboarded up a modern stepper driver. These run at half stepping. These things are very, very musical. But
yeah.
My first long form video I intend to be is basically, you got a cupcake, now what? And that video be educational, not only to help you run a MakerBot cupcake, but hopefully stop you from blowing it up like I blew mine up.
Yeah. Man, wow. There's a lot of content that you got going on there, Jeff. I really appreciate you.
It's cool. As I
coming on
said,
the show.
I started as a personal challenge as far as the current content. The main goal was, let's help people put firmware on old printers. Then I started the personal challenge. We got to introduce every single one of these printers, which for a while there I was getting more and more and more. So there's several printers that weren't here when that content started. And I'm just glad to be able to do it. It's something that, I would be bored otherwise. None of this was really on purpose. I wasn't collecting old printers on purpose. I didn't start a firmware project on purpose. I didn't, a lot of my content and the first 80 of those 365 days was not on purpose. One of the points I'm going to make earlier was I didn't really, I call these printers vintage. So I named the series 365 days of printing on vintage hardware. And I had a lot of comments kind of mad about the title being clickbait. That wasn't planned, but I'll tell you what, it was good engagement bait. So I don't know what other advice to give other than don't have a plan, just do it, and have some fun.
There was an engagement kind of question earlier.
Sure.
The Tech Jeeper wanted to know if you were getting more TikTok subscribers when you're posting every day. I think.
Yes, I think so. I still get some subscribers here and there. I get notifications, but especially it was still rolling pretty decent. Maybe a week or so after, but yeah, definitely when you're posting every day, a lot of the platforms will reward you for that. I think we all already know that. Platforms will reward you for a regular content pace. It doesn't even have to be daily. If you post weekly and then you skip a week, the algorithm tends to punish you on some platforms.
I wonder what it thinks of people who only stream on prime numbers.
Oh, prime number days.
Best ones. Those are the best ones.
But another thing that's slowing down, I don't, because the project's not really making progress, I try not to draw too much attention to it. So the goal of the personal challenge was not to draw attention to the project, but it has done that. Another unintentional thing. I had so many people message me and say, I have this old printer, do you want it? So we've brought the trip that I took the Thing-O-Matic on. A user in South Carolina gave me another printer bot simple that it's actually very more unique one. We don't have time for me to pull it out, but the one that he gave me has a tower on top of it. It's actually behind that M1, but it has a tower on top of it. That tower holds the power supply. It holds a screen, which is a modification that I didn't have. I've hooked screens to this board before, and they freeze after like a minute. So I get to investigate why that screen probably works and why mine aren't. But it's got a spool. There's 4 holes. You can put 4 bearings on and put a spool on top of it. So the one he gave me was, this used to be fishing line. This has been modified to use belts by the previous owner, which was a common modification. But the other one is very different, even though it has the same mod on it. It's a way different printer. It's going to provide content,
Fishing line used commonly?
Yeah, and the fishing line is kind of, sometimes it was actual fishing line. And I believe the printer bot used like Dremel sanding discs as the drive wheel. So instead of the belt pulley, they had the Dremel sanding disc. One of the things that gets people about this Kinematic too is people notice usually the bearings move on most printers. The rods are what moves on the printer bot.
Right.
So that's something else that's different. But instead of this GT2 pulley, or sometimes there'll be MXL on some of the older printers, there was the Dremel equivalent of a capstan, and they would use some sort of high tension string. Richard Horn, he made a printer called Slider. It's got a 3 somewhere in there. I think it's before the D though, not after the D. So that it says it's like SLI 3DR. And that uses some sort of tension wire with cap stands. And he says that printer to this day does the best layer stacking that he's ever seen in his life. So, and there was a printer at the Japanese Rep Rap Festival. I didn't attend, or really I haven't watched any of the content yet. But there was a printer that has the 2 X beams on the side, and that printer actually goes up and down by.
I think.
And that uses capstan and some sort of high tension string as well. So that's something to look up.
There's an exhibitor coming to 3D Printopia with a printer like you described.
It's
but
probably
it was
that printer.
Fishing line instead of the belts. And that was the first time I had seen that.
So if you wanted me to name things that have been obsoleted, I think it's hard. The DC motors are coming back. The fishing line's coming back. It's all coming back.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. Well, I mean, here's to it all coming back. I'm not so sure. Well, I mean, if I can be very comfortable with the consistency of a wooden frame printer, bring wood back too. I'm all for it.
Hey, it's sustainable. I sometimes I joke, bamboo, we think of like, hardwood flooring and stuff. It's a type of grass. And I sometimes go in the bamboo server and I say, reject modernity, return to wood.
I think it's good advice. For sure. And it'll change. We've seen it. I've been in 3D printing long enough, and so is Vicky, that like what was like the biggest thing 6 years ago is in obsolescence, and now we're at another phase, so I'm looking forward to things like 3D Printopia and seeing what kind of things are out there, because I don't think that this is something 3D printing, desktop 3D printing and production and fabrication, it's not going to stand still. So thanks for keeping these things running, because we can use some of those older ideas to upgrade the new ones for sure.
Jeff, we just got rated, so there's a bunch of new viewers here. Do you want to give a quick little synopsis of who you are and what you do?
Okay, so a lot of people know me on Discord and whatnot as Rain Motorsports. I put modern firmware on old printers and I display them when I can at things like 3D Printopia. I hope to make it out to some of the other events, but 3D Printopia was in Bel Air. It's going to be in Philly this year, which is exciting because we're getting an expanded space. And it's also another major city. So I'm excited to be there this year, but I hope to make it out to Rocky Mountain. I hear Midwest Festival is changing. I was warned not to take my plywood printers out there due to the humidity, but this year they were sponsored with air conditioning.
Yeah, they did get air conditioning.
So, and the event is evolving the same way that East Coast Rep Festival evolved. So we'll see how that is, and we'll talk to them and we'll try to make it out there as well.
And tell them what room in your house you're at.
We're in my dining room. It's a little bit more of a mess than when we started because we're pulling printers out and talking, but this is the dining room.
Awesome. That's exactly where 3D printers must be.
I think 3D Systems, I think MakerBot tried to sell us on the idea that everybody's going to own a 3D printer. 3D Systems went on the news and said they're going to have a printer in every room. Only some of us have done that, but
a little bit overkill, I think, right now. Yes, indeed. Well,
unfortunately for all the people who came from Polymaker, we were just about to wrap up. Jeff, did you have any other stories that you wanted to tell?
I got one more. There's plenty we could go, for days, but
yes.
It's another 3D Printopia one. It's actually about Vicky, kind of. When I volunteered at 3D Printopia in 2023, I did not know Vicky. I did not know a lot of people. And so I had to, I was assigned, I believe, work registration for like an hour or two, something like that. I sat down to Vicky. She showed me how to do everything. Was quite lovely. I didn't know Vicky. So after the event, I realized that the people that volunteer, Steve Builds is another, YouTuber in the Voron community. And there's a bunch of other ones. I can't remember what's the one that's ballistic in his name, I think.
Oh, Brian, right?
Yeah, Brian. I've talked with Brian several times, but the first year I was there, I did not know any of these people. And after the event, the content starts coming through the feed, and I realized that I've met all these wonderful people. Vicky is into programming and 3D printing and all sorts of things. So that's what really, I think these events, people may consume content like they're consuming content with us talking right now. But we go to these events, and I think we connect to people in different ways, and we connect to people that we would never meet. The same thing happened the following year. We do, I don't know if you guys are still, going to do it the same way or do it differently, but the volunteers and exhibitors at a lot of events, they have a late night after party after, day 1 or day 2 at an event. And I was sitting we were sitting down, and I've sat down with a lot of great people at these dinners, but we're sitting at a table, and there was somebody there that everybody seemed to know, and I didn't know who it was. It was Beverly from Ecovate 3D and Raleigh, who's not that far from us. I can drive there in a day. I got to go down there one of these days. But everybody seemed to know her, and I was like, okay, it's an embarrassing question. I don't know who you are. And everybody at the table said, you're going to know. And sure enough, yes, I now know. It's just there's so many people, so much content out there. It's hard to consume it all without the connections. You can't consume everything, but the connections are important. There's a lot of places to make connections. So we have all these different platforms. We have the short form like TikTok. We have YouTube and Twitch, these live streams, but the in-person events are really important to me. And people have come from all over the world. And I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most is I'm meeting people from other countries that are working on projects that I had never seen before.
Yes, wonderful. And yeah, that's a one reason why people recommend when you do go to those shows and you have your little name tag to also go ahead and put your online handle. So people could kind of make those connections that way too. Like a lot of people know you as Rain Motorsports.
Yeah, 2023, I had an Ultimaker. I had 3D printed the frame of an Ultimaker, and then I had my Rain Motorsports logo in the middle of that. Now I have my this old 3D printer T-shirts, but yeah, I still wore that. I think it's falling apart now. I'll have to print something else up.
Well, you have, I mean, we're under 100 days now until 3D Printopia.
Yep.
So. And Lawrence, I don't know if you know this week is the 8-year anniversary. Like today is the 8-year anniversary of our very first event, the East Coast Rip Rap Festival of 2018.
Wow.
It was June 23rd and 24th, I think.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, that's great. I mean, I think if I'm thinking correctly now, I'm thinking about the Capital Maker Fair. I went to the Capital Maker Fair before I heard about the East Coast Rip Rap Festival. So yes. Yeah, it's been 8 years of dedication and excellent programming, and looking forward to the next one. I just heard that I saw that the hotel deals have come out. There's like 4 hotels that you can go to.
5. Yeah.
5. Yeah. Yes. So everybody look that up, and hopefully we'll see you in Philadelphia.
All right. Oh, anything else?
Nothing that we have time for, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I wanted to see the Fabster, but we could talk about that a different day. That was
yeah. And I don't have one. It's something that never came out, but that's another thing, making these connections. There are printers I've never heard of. There's printers, even the most research I'll ever do, that I won't run into. So a moderator in the 3D printing Discord was like, hey, I saw this printer in the 2013 German Expo, and I don't know what it was, but this is what it did. These little sticks of filament, they have hooks on the end. So there's a stack of sticks on the side of the printer, and they're pulling them one at a time. So one stick, it gets pulled by the previous one, and it pulls that stick with it. And so it feeds these, you can change the colors of the sticks. It printed quite horribly, but it was an interesting idea. In the early days of 3D printing, they were throwing things at the wall and seeing what would stick.
Right.
And no matter how much research I do, I would not have run into that. He did not know what the printer was called when we started the conversation. By the time the conversation was over, we found the video. I said, hey, that should be another episode of the channel. And then speaking of research, there are resources that are kind of disappearing that are not, they're only partially available on the archive.org. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do. And that's something that is not public yet, but there was a wiki. The guy who did all the illustrations for MakerBot in the early days, how to wire the printers and that sort of stuff, he had a personal wiki that he has taken offline because of AI bots. We're just hammering his server. And I went to go to the website and I'm like, oh no, I haven't backed this up. I messaged him. I asked for permission to share that information. I was able to archive most of it. I was missing a few pictures. And he opened up the wiki so that I could copy everything and gave me permission to share it. So I'm going to try to reconstruct. If you try to go to the copy of the MakerBot wiki, all the links are broken. I'm going to fix that. E3D's wiki, which is gone, I'm going to reconstruct as much of that as possible. I'm going to try to, when I get the time, which is never, archive a lot of this information to make research easier for people.
It's fantastic.
Wow. Well, that's certainly something to look forward to. Yes.
And don't forget the Maker too.
Yeah, I say
near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, well, I say Rick has been a resource with that. I don't know what's going on with the company. I know they had a tough time after 2018. I was told they were going to shut down, but they never did. And I was told there's a company in Ohio. I don't know if they want to be named. We all actually know them very well. If I said the name, you would know who it is. But they put out an offer to acquire MakerGear, and MakerGear said no. So I think they're trying to stick around.
All right.
Well, good luck to them. Good luck to them for sure.
All right. Well, as we're wrapping up here, if anybody here is new to our show, we make it hard for the algorithms and you because we only stream on Tuesdays that are prime numbers. So it's
the only way to stream. I mean,
just trying to come up with something very sustainable for our schedule.
Very much so. Yes, I really appreciate that.
The next prime number is going to be July 7th. And so that's going to be just in a couple weeks. And we want to thank you, Jeff, Rain Motorsports, and this old 3D printer, all of your many aliases. If you're interested in Jeff, you can just Google this old 3D printer. You're going to find him on YouTube. You're going to find him on TikTok. You're going to find his website. Are you on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah, so go through the list real quick. Just YouTube, TikTok, X, Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook. And talking about search this old 3D printer. Anytime I try to Google anything about old 3D printers, I can't help but run into myself. So I'm not hard to find.
All right.
Yes. And then thank you everyone who joined the stream tonight and was commenting. We love to see that engagement, and it's nice to spend our Prime Tuesdays with you. So hopefully we'll see some of you back in just a couple weeks. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.